Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Undaunted Man podcast. I'm Mark Johnson. This is my partner.
Geoff Laughton.
There you go. We're getting better at that, actually, I think.
Hell yeah.
So we spend a lot of time talking about being true to yourself, being in integrity with yourself, and that there's really no other way to operate than that, no effective way to operate in life other than that. So the question on the table is, how do you know? How do you know what your true self is versus something that's driven by your psychology, either FOMO or neediness or some form of fear of stepping out on your own and being your own person? How do you know?
Well, probably great to start with how much easier it is, I think, certainly for men in our community and the people that we are addressing here on our social media feeds, etc., easier to first identify how easy it actually is to recognize that you're not operating from your true self. And for me, that usually involves a lot of what you just shared. But I'll go a little meta, and then we can get more granular.
Sounds good.
For me, the thing that's helped me work on, getting better and better at knowing the difference and making the switch to true self is to recognize that if it's coming from ego and psychology, the external orientation, just speaking for me, is huge.
Mm-hmm.
What are people going to think? Are people liking what I'm putting out there? Am I going to, all my old Mr. Nice Guy shit starts coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, can I deliver a hard hitting message with enough marshmallow around it to, make sure that nobody thinks I'm a dick? And then I'm worrying about a lot of other external things like how much money is in the bank, how much work do I have, and worry. My spirit, my true self, never worries.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my God, my psychology could go down the worry highway to hell just like that. And I also will get competitive, but not in a healthy masculine sense of competitive, because men, I think we have an innate competitiveness with self and other men.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go into a lot of comparison, and and this is something that you and I spent years working through. Well, I was working through it. You were just being patient. But where I would get competitive with my own business partner because my ego was so worried about either not getting stuff right or not being as smart or not being as aware or perceptive. And I'm not going to lie and say that's 100% gone, but it's a minuscule fraction of what it used to be. And then I also orient towards what other people need first, and not even really taking a cold, hard look at what my own needs are.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the most standout ones. Oh, and let's not forget that when we're enmeshed in all that psychological stuff, we I'll speak for me. I can get lazy, and I'm easily distracted. So, it's marked by the difference between my true self, my higher self, will say, here's a little corner that could use a little sweeping and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
strengthening. And my mind, my ego will say, oh, I see that corner. Well, it's been there a long time. I'll get to it later. And then I can doom scroll, or I'll just putz around and not do things that need to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So it literally, I'm really been seeing in the last few weeks, it's a sensation of losing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when I connect to my true self, it there's no attention on any of that other stuff. Or I mean, I can be aware, but I'm not getting enmeshed in it. And when I can really, in my body, feel who I am,
Mm-hmm.
I'm noticing there's a greater level of peace.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That mirrors my experience too.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. How do you reconcile you're putting other people's needs first or prioritizing other people's needs with the expectation, the social expectation, and the biological imperative to um, be self-sacrificing and play a protector role? What's how do you make that healthy rather than destructive? Because I from what I see and in my own experience, that's a major disconnect
Mm-hmm.
in Western culture these days. So I'm wondering how you reconcile those things and how you turn a potentially unhealthy tendency into a healthy tendency.
Well, I'll just say the very first awareness that came to me, one is motivated by ego and about conformity. The other comes from love. There
Mm-hmm.
is a truly something Mark and I have been talking about a lot the last several weeks has been, how many of us orient towards what about me?
Mm.
It's all about me. Am I happy? How am I doing? How do I feel? I.
Mm-hmm.
And, given that Undaunted Man is a, pro human, pro social, spiritually grounded community of men, well, that means I have to be tuned in to the men that I serve in here and my
Mm-hmm.
clients, my private coaching clients.
Mm-hmm.
And what I notice is there is little self sacrifice. And I'm going to reword that. There's oneness, the whole spiritual concept of oneness requires a recognition that we're all the same. We're all unique, and yet we're also all part of the divine whole, the way I
Mm-hmm.
think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm, you know, how I can reconcile it is to recognize first when I'm working, I really do the best I possibly can. My whole focus is the needs of my client, the needs of the men in the groups that I lead. And, when I was younger and dumber, it was about, wow, how am I coming off? What are they thinking about me?
Mm-hmm.
So now it's getting to a place I'm realizing in the moment where I just, if I'm walking on the side of serving from true self, I don't enter into the conversation very much,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, tracking anything other than what's in front of me and what am I hearing to say? What can I feel in my body is almost like a forward propulsion. Like in the group last night, I was in, a pretty, well, I'll put it this way. There was a man who needed a major dose of tough love.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a man who isn't used to getting a lot of tough love from me or for anyone else. And he got a massive dose of it. And in the past, self sacrificing, hidden as self aggrandizement, it popped in for a second. Like I had, ooh, I hope this goes okay. And
Mm-hmm.
then out it came.
Mm-hmm.
And, what needed to happen happened. And it kind of got confirmed by the fuck you and thank you,
Mm-hmm.
which you and I know really well.
Right. Yeah.
That's how, anyway, I digress. But the reconciliation, the only other thing I'll say about it is that when it's coming from a spiritually grounded place for me,
Mm-hmm.
I actually feel my embodied sense of love and care for the other,
Mm-hmm.
and and my compassion and my empathy
Mm-hmm.
go up like spinal tap empathy. It goes up to 11,
Mm-hmm.
and that informs to some degree what comes from me energetically and out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so effortless and unself-conscious.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great way of putting it. So the way I would reflect that back is there isn't a sacrifice.
Yeah,
So
right.
so now what happens? I mean, because we experience this all the time with the men that we work with. What happens when men are experiencing sacrifice? I mean, I know in my experience that usually happens in for two primary reasons. Um, One is whatever they are doing in service of others is coming from an inauthentic place. It's
Right.
because they've got nice guy tendencies. Um,
Give to
they're
get.
give to get, covert contracts, all that kind of thing. And the other is when they are giving, providing, protecting, whatever it is the circumstance calls for. What is typical is that those actions generate reciprocity and respect from our partners, from whoever it is that we're serving.
Yep.
And that reciprocity and respect is rare these days, exceedingly rare.
Yep.
And so, I mean, the question then becomes is do you serve someone that doesn't respect your service? And that's an internal question. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule.
Yeah.
I don't, I wouldn't be the guy that would ever stand up and say that you should never serve anyone that doesn't respect your service. Um, I would also say that you should stop serving people that never respect your service at a certain point.
For
But
you.
that, right, for you, because if 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 that doesn't, if you don't recognize that, if a man doesn't recognize that as being out of integrity, that's when it becomes self-sacrifice. And self-sacrifice in that sense is always dysfunctional.
Right.
It's always a problem. it always diminishes the person engaging in the service. And it's ultimately a rather hopeless situation, because there, especially when men get desperate
Mhm.
for validation and respect, or sometimes even just care, consideration, and love, and it's not forthcoming for whatever reason, that's when a man has to walk away,
Yeah.
in my opinion, because there is no other option. You'll never convince somebody to respect your service. They either respect you or they don't. And if they don't hang around.
Yeah.
And this applies to romantic relationships. It applies to working relationships. It applies to friendships. There's no scenario where it doesn't apply. Tolerating disrespect is the fastest way to misery.
Yep. Yep. And it occurred to me while you were saying that one of another discriminator
Mm-hmm.
to gauge, if I'm thinking about true self on my left and false self on the right in terms of characteristics. The one other discriminator about if you're in that egoically driven, insatiable need for validation and approval, you can spot it by noticing how often you keep score,
Mm-hmm.
which in couples is so rampant.
Yeah.
Well, I got up and, changed the baby 5 times this week. You only did it 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about, true self-sacrifice when you have a baby,
Right.
right? And we have some
Mm-hmm.
guys in our community with brand new babies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a joy to watch one man whose little boy is about maybe a week and a half old.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll pop on to, our Marco Polo check-in channel for his group. And he's just beaming about how shitty the diaper was last night that he had to change at 3 a.m. And, and he's so in love with this baby.
Mm-hmm.
And, before he or his partner could complain about, well, I do X amount and you don't do as much. And they'd get into, mutual disrespect. And it's amazing to see how, for him at least, he, there's no self-sacrifice at all for him to take care of his son and to help his wife out,
Mm-hmm.
to give her some rest every now and then. And I can't detect, I've been feeling into it, looking, I can't detect anything but selfless service.
Mm-hmm.
Partly out of appreciating his wife giving birth. So for any men who have ever watched your wife or your partner give birth, man, if that doesn't up your respect level for women in general, but also your partner,
Mm-hmm.
what it takes to do that. So selfless service to, be able to complement hers, but also serving someone you love that needs support, that needs help.
Mm-hmm.
And the baby, they depend on us for everything. But same thing with friends and people in the group that are taking food over to this guy and his wife to, I love that shit. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's here.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that is, that kind of service is properly motivated. It's motivated from the right place. And
Yeah.
there is a right and wrong, not in terms of moral judgment, but if if that was coming from a scorekeeping place,
Right.
it wouldn't be the same. That would be motivated by the wrong energy, by the wrong thought process.
Yep.
Or if his wife was busy, squawking at him because, she changed the diaper 5 times and he only changed it 3 times, and so he better get with the program and do it 2 more times.
Yeah.
That only, there's resentment in the original ask,
Yep.
and that only generates more resentment. So then it becomes a mutual contempt society, and that's not good for anybody.
No. And there's the story of most of the couples that I work with. They're caught in that to varying degrees. And, another thing that just occurred to me as you were sharing that is here's another discriminator that I recognized in myself, is that when you're sacrificing for the wrong reasons, the wrong place that you were just describing, in my past, I can remember that I'm really serving X person, but my energy is actually getting depleted.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I'm serving from true self, from my spiritual heart, it gives me energy.
Right.
Profound energy.
Yeah, there's no such thing as fatigue when you're motivated like that. You just do, as a man, you just do what needs to be done. That is the definition, one of the definitions of being a healthy masculine man. Now, who gets to define what needs to be done? You and only you.
Right.
Not me, not Jeff, not your wife, not your partner, you. And that's what makes that statement, that idea, that concept, that makes modern men very uncomfortable.
Yep. Which probably raises the question for some of you that are watching this. Well, I kind of get what you guys are saying, but I also don't kind of get it. And this was true for me when I was much younger, and even last week on a couple of days. Who am I? Like, I agree with you 100%. It can only be ourselves that ascertains what needs to be done. But that is greatly aided by having a strong enough sense of who you are, distinct from who you thought you were, your whole ego identity crap. There's an essence to all of us that is immutable and so clear. And a lot of us have struggled to connect with that. So what we want to invite you to do, if you're sitting here watching this going, well, this is interesting, or you might even have the occasional, what the fuck are these guys talking about? Then what we want to invite you to do, if you're not subscribing to this channel, click the subscribe button below this video, subscribe to our channel, and go back and look at some of our already recorded videos. Keep watching the ones that we're going to keep making. And then come check out one of our groups. You can go to the undauntedman.com and click on resources. And we have this lovely free giveaway for you called The Masculine Dilemma that speaks to some of what Mark and I have just been sharing about. And you can check out a group. We have groups that are virtual. We have groups that are local to the Colorado Front Range, Denver, Boulder, that whole area. Hang out with other men that are in the same question as you might be right now, going, I'm really curious about what these guys are throwing down. And there's the best, easiest way. And when you come check out a group, the first time you come ain't going to cost you a penny. So subscribe and come check us out.
Look
Thank
forward to
you for
meeting you.
watching. You know we'll be back.
Take care.